Few people know that the biggest turning point in Paul Teutul Jr.'s life did not happen on television, in a courtroom, or inside a motorcycle shop. It happened quietly in moments where no cameras were rolling and no one was watching. To the public, he was the calm builder, the creative force, the steady hand behind some of the most famous motorcycles in the world. But behind that image, a slow shift was taking place. Family loyalty, power, fame, and personal identity began pulling him in different directions. Each choice carried consequences that could not be undone. And over time, those choices led him further away from the life he once knew. The question is not what he lost, but how much of himself he had to give up along the way. Paul Teutul Jr.'s world was shaped long before television cameras arrived. It began inside the roaring chaos of Orange County choppers, where molten steel sparked against concrete floors, engines thundered through thin walls, and deadlines ruled every waking hour. This was not merely a workplace. It was a proving ground. From an early age, Paul Jr. absorbed the relentless rhythm of fabrication, learning that perfection demanded sacrifice, and that weakness had no shelter inside those walls. Under the commanding presence of his father Paul Teutul Sr., discipline and pressure became daily companions. Their relationship was forged through conflict as much as cooperation. Sr. ruled the shop with uncompromising authority, while Jr. quietly cultivated a different kind of power, vision where others saw metal. Paul Jr. saw movement, emotion, identity. He possessed an instinct for transforming raw materials into symbolic machines, each motorcycle carrying a story beyond mechanics. This creative fire set him apart, slowly positioning him as the artistic backbone of the operation. Years later, that hidden brilliance found its stage. American Chopper erupted onto television screens and instantly reshaped the landscape of reality entertainment. Viewers were drawn not only to the machines, but to the volatile human drama unfolding behind them. Arguments, pride, and exhaustion played out with a raw intensity that felt dangerously real. At the center of that storm stood Paul Jr., whose designs became the emotional anchor of the series. His motorcycles weren't just functional marvels. They were statements of identity, rebellion, and craftsmanship crafted with obsessive attention to detail. The small New York workshop transformed into a global brand almost overnight. Fame arrived swiftly, almost violently. Millions watched, analyzed, debated, and idolized. Paul Jr. emerged as the quiet star, the creative genius whose work gave the show its soul. His designs began appearing in museums, corporate collections, and national exhibitions. In a culture hungry for authenticity, his craftsmanship represented a rare purity. The world celebrated him as a symbol of American grit, innovation, and self-made success. But behind the applause, the reality was far more fragile. Success brought pressures that no blueprint could solve. Deadlines shortened, expectations multiplied, creative freedom narrowed. The relentless production schedule demanded emotional stamina as much as physical endurance. Every design now carried the weight of millions of eyes. Mistakes became public. Conflict became entertainment. Personal struggles were no longer private. Success did not soften the Teutul household. It hardened it. As American Chopper surged into cultural dominance, the workshop transformed from a family business into a high-pressure media machine. Every build carried not only financial stakes, but emotional consequences. Deadlines tightened. Cameras rolled endlessly. The smallest disagreement became magnified under national scrutiny. Within that pressure cooker, the already fragile relationship between father and son began to combust. Paul Sr. ruled the shop with absolute authority. His leadership style, forged through years of labor and survival-driven ambition, relied on dominance, control, and intimidation. Respect in his world was earned through obedience. But Paul Jr., now globally recognized as the creative force behind their success, sought autonomy. His vision demanded space. His artistry required trust. The clash between control and creativity became inevitable. Arguments erupted daily. Shouting matches echoed through the workshop, spilling into offices, parking lots, and production meetings. Passionate collaboration mutated into emotional warfare. Each confrontation chipped away at remnants of mutual respect. Pride replaced patience. Resentment replaced loyalty. The cameras captured fragments of this breakdown. But beyond the lens, the psychological toll intensified. Legal contracts tightened the grip. Production demands eliminated emotional breathing room. Personal grievances piled atop professional pressure, forming a volatile storm. For Paul Jr., the struggle cut deeper than business. His identity was inseparable from the shop. Childhood, creativity, and emotional development were rooted in Orange County choppers. Every argument with his father reopened old wounds, wounds shaped by years of authoritarian discipline and emotional distance. The workshop was no longer a home. It had become a battlefield where self-worth was constantly under siege. The breaking point arrived in 2008. Paul Sr. made a decision that would permanently fracture their bond. In a move that stunned viewers and devastated his son, Paul Jr. was fired from Orange County choppers. The dismissal was abrupt, public, and merciless. Cameras recorded the fallout as years of resentment exploded in a single irreversible moment. For Paul Jr., the termination was not merely professional exile. It was emotional banishment. The business he helped build, the identity he had shaped, and the family legacy he believed in were stripped away in an instant. He was cast out not only from the company, but from the emotional center of his own history. The fallout left a silence that fame could not fill. When Paul Jr. walked away from the empire he helped build, the cameras stopped, the noise faded, and the applause vanished. What remained was crushing stillness. For the first time in his adult life, he faced a future unanchored from the shop that had shaped his identity. In an attempt to reclaim control, he launched Paul Jr. Designs, pouring energy into building a new creative path. On the surface, the venture represented resilience. Beneath it, deep psychological strain lingered. Lawsuits with his father dragged on relentlessly, draining finances, time, and emotional endurance. Each legal battle reopened old wounds, forcing him to relive the collapse of his family bond. Victory or defeat mattered less than the constant reminder of what had been lost. Personal life fractured as well. His marriage, once a refuge, deteriorated under the weight of absence and trauma. Long hours, legal stress, and psychological withdrawal eroded intimacy. Divorce compounded the sense of loss. Isolation became a constant companion. Without the shop, without his father, and without the stability of marriage, Paul Jr. navigated a world stripped of emotional anchors. Self-doubt took root. Nights stretched longer, and silence grew heavier. Yet outwardly he continued working. Projects were completed, builds were delivered, television appearances resurfaced. But the emotional cost lingered beneath every success. Achievement no longer brought fulfillment. Applause no longer brought comfort. Recognition no longer healed wounds. Amid the darkness, reflection began. Pain forced introspection. Years of suppressed emotion surfaced, demanding acknowledgement. The anger that once protected him softened into grief. Resentment began dissolving into longing for peace, connection, and healing. Fatherhood altered everything. Paul Jr. now stood not as a son fighting to be understood, but as a father shaping another life. This responsibility pierced through years of emotional armor. It forced him to confront generational patterns of control, distance, pride, and silence. Legacy was no longer measured in horsepower or television ratings. It was measured in emotional safety, stability, and trust. Resentment slowly gave way to empathy. Years of anger, once armor, softened into understanding. Healing unfolded in fragments. Small moments of humility replaced defiance. Quiet reflection replaced confrontation. Forgiveness entered the realm of possibility, not reconciliation, but emotional release. Tentative communication reopened fragile lines with his father. Progress was incremental, layered with decades of history. Conversations once impossible cautiously resumed. Pride lingered. Silence intervened. But beneath the restraint lay mutual recognition of loss. Neither had escaped the wreckage unscarred. Redemption did not arrive dramatically. It arrived quietly through discipline, restraint, and deliberate reinvention. Paul Jr. returned to craftsmanship itself, the raw meditative process of shaping metal into meaning. Designs grew more introspective, less theatrical, each build reflecting internal change rather than external ambition. Fatherhood continued reshaping his worldview. Patience replaced dominance. Understanding replaced control. Generational patterns were consciously dismantled. His home became a place of dialogue, stability, and emotional presence. Reconciliation with his father remained fragile. Years of conflict had carved deep psychological barriers, but time softened edges. Silence allowed reflection, and shared loss fostered humility. Conversations resumed cautiously. Neither sought to assign blame. Instead, exchanges carried the weight of mutual recognition. Acknowledgement of pain endured, mistakes made, and time lost. It was not forgiveness. It was not restoration. It was fragile acceptance. Pride had cost them years of connection. Fame had distorted perception. Ego had replaced empathy. Ambition had overshadowed emotional presence. Paul Jr. no longer sought vindication or public acknowledgement. He pursued peace. Stability became the ultimate measure of success. Emotional clarity surpassed financial achievement. His story transformed from spectacle into testimony. A meditation on family, forgiveness, and the irreversible cost of unresolved conflict. Some wounds remained stubbornly open. Years lost could never be recovered. Emotional distance lingered beneath surface civility, and yet hope persisted. In fleeting moments of shared memory, cautious gestures of mutual respect and recognition of shared history, the possibility of deeper healing remained alive, fragile, uncertain, real. Paul Jr.'s journey became a testament to resilience, proof that growth can emerge from devastation, clarity from collapse, and a legacy built not on conflict, but on connection.